fight fans, I am Jason BURGOS for Sherdog.com, and I have the great pleasure of talking with a true MMA industry influencer and one of the top promoters in all of Europe. In March, he had to make the difficult decision every top promoter on the planet had to make and postpone upcoming events due to the coronavirus outbreak. And I am very pleased he can take part in this edition of the Coronavirus Chronicles series. And that man is KSW CEO and co-founder Martin Lewandowski. Martin, thank you so much for the time to talk the events that are affecting all of us all over the world.
I know. It's been a crazy time right now we are living in. So, I try to see in that situation and get the pluses from that, because there are a lot of minuses, but I used to be, and I am still the positive thinker. So I don't want to be naive in that what I'm saying, but it has to find some pluses in that situation. Actually, I have found, like in private life, I think all of us, we are having more time for ourselves. Yeah. So still, like every day I'm busy, I'm doing like normal, like I'm thinking, this is what you're seeing, this is my home office, and it's my hands are full of work, but still like, I could read the agreements which I never had the time to read, or the books I were like postponed for better times. So in that sense, I think it's good to have a little bit more time for yourself, and you just think about what's going on and why we're here and what for.
And I appreciate that kind of positivity, because there's so much going on, and it's kind of depressing, and it's a bit of a downer. So we need that kind of thinking. And, so I want to get your outlook on some tough things you had to go through in the last few weeks going on with your promotion. From KSW has been around for 16 years, I believe, right? Something around that number. Now, was this decision you had to make was without a doubt, I have to wonder or ask you, was it the hardest decision you've ever had to make in your career in this industry to postpone KSW 53? And was there a lot of wavering to try and find a way not to make this happening, not to get to that point?
I think when I think about the past, so I think I had serious decision to make. So it wasn't the most difficult or the most serious one, but for sure that was the most uncertain and the most craziest. Yeah. So this is the first time we didn't had a how to say, we didn't had a enough power or decision to make it happen. Yeah. So this that we postponed, it was something above us. It was something we couldn't, question. Yeah. So this is the first time, and me as a businessman, it's just like, you usually, and that's what I do, you always, trust in your people, you trust in your decision. And here, there is no decision you can make. You just need to, follow the rules, which were set by the government, and all the restriction, you couldn't avoid it. You just had to accept it. Of course, we try to right now, to save as much as we can and to reduce the costs and not to get panic and so on. But still, this is something you don't have power to fight with.
Yeah, not fair enough. I talked to Fernand Lopez last week. He's running Ares FC, and I asked about the difficulty of calling these fighters, because they had to cancel their second event and letting them know, the show was off. And he did deal with some resistance, because he talked about that in Brussels there was still MMA events going on around the same time. A lot of fighters were confused on that. Now he did it nearly a month in advance from the scheduled date they had. KSW was officially canceled the day of the event. How difficult were those last 1 or 2 days leading up to the event, and having to call fighters and break the news to them so close to the event? Or was it far easier, because maybe a lot of fighters kind of understood what was happening in the world, and they sort of got it and they understood the decision?
Yeah. It's a complex, first of all, people were aware, what's going on, and kind of, it wasn't a new for them. Of course, it's still a new, every day something new. You find out the virus and about the situation, but I'm talking about that it wasn't something which shocked everybody. Yeah. So we kind of thought about it in ahead, what might happen, and we were prepared. We were prepared with the Plan B, which was the smaller version of KSW without the public. But unfortunately, we couldn't do it also. So, like, maybe starting from the beginning, because that's the process. I need to explain a little bit more so people understand the whole thing. We were forced to postpone or to cancel, however we call it, KSW 53, like 1 week and a half before the event.
Okay.
So that was good enough. So you know, with the cost and involvement in the process, we could cut. So it's better that way, not like 1 or 2 days before the show.
Okay.
So you know, all the costs and everything will be much higher, and more frustration from the fighters, and this uncertain situation. You have to wait what's going on. So, but first, there was the government restriction which said that all the massive events were forbidden. So then we implemented Plan B, which was we do without the public. But afterwards there was another restriction which affect us a lot, which was restrictions in movement. So you couldn't, you know, first of all, even moving in Poland was kind of difficult. Of course, you could move, but there was a lot of, you know, uncertain situation. But for example, like in Czech or in Germany, in England, where all our fighters supposed to came from, so that was hard. First of all, did they start kind of be aware and afraid if it's worth it to go to Poland? Their situation, their country become a little bit crazy. And then we were not sure if they are going to fly in. You know, they might be stopped on the border, on the airport, and sent to quarantine for 2 weeks. Yeah. So that's the thing. So actually these two major factors decided us to postpone. There was a third factor, which was I think the little one, but also important in that case, and I want to mention that not all the fighters understood how serious the situation is, and were expecting that us as a federation are going to pay for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, to take all the responsibility. So we didn't want to do it. Like, you know, it's also something, you know, like all the fighters, we are talking about the costs, reducing the cost, because if our show was for nearly 14,000 tickets, and it was nearly sold out. So we had to give it back all the tickets.
Wow.
You know, because that's what we would do anyway. But this is also according to the law, according to the rules. So that's it. It was hard. It wasn't the hardest I had to deal with during my business life, but it was weird. It was uncertain, and that's what I said. It was just you could do nothing. It just like you know, the God's will. I'm not a believer, but it's a God's will. You know what can you do? You just have to accept and live with it. You know.
How does this all affect you and your staff financially? Is it a big hit for you because you have so much invested in this? And is there like a scary cutoff point where you might have to make even tougher decisions? Like if this goes into June, July, August, and there's uncertainty in the country and Europe and stuff like that, is there a point where you know down the line it can get really difficult?
Of course. It just, you know, as long as the situation continues, so the things become more sad and bad.
Yeah.
So like actually the March show was supposed to be our first show. This we're supposed to start this year with the March show, and then we have planned already. We had to postpone already 2 shows. So we are counting that maybe in May we are going to do maybe this kind of, you know, smaller show without the public.
Okay.
But we don't know, because actually today there are more restrictions in Poland. Like you can walk with your dog, the children cannot stay alone. If you walk, there might be only 2 people in the shop or wherever. So there are more restrictions.
Yeah.
So it also makes it, you know, impossible to make the sports events when the guys need to be so close and fight. So impossible.
Yeah.
But we are counting that after the Eastern time, the situation will calm down a little bit. and maybe the May show we are about to do. We are in touch with the fighters. Of course, we need to change the fight card because, with those three shows, two already gone, so we need to make some changes. But that's what we are doing. We are just reducing the costs for sure, So we are talking with all our suppliers and telling, and everybody understands that. Nobody is right now that you need to explain. Everybody understands because it's like a chain reaction, like in the company, then in the country, and the whole world. Everything is connected right now. So if somebody has a problem, sooner or later you will have a problem. If you don't even feel right now, you will. It's just a question of time. So we are reducing the costs. We are freezing some of the activities. And planning the future, and in a different version actually. First of all, we want to do, if for example the international movement in this restriction on movement will be still valid on, I don't know how to say this properly, but it's just like the you can't bring anybody outside of Poland. So we are thinking about doing the show Polish, English, I don't know. So just will be national kind of. That's one thing. Then without the public, so there are a couple of versions we are thinking right now. The situation right now it's strange. It's not tragic, but as soon, by the end of this year, if the situation will happen, so 1 year of keeping the office. Like switch on without any income. So at the end of this year, I think it might be a bigger problem. But now it's fine, let's say. The perfect solution is not the perfect time, but can you do?
Now give me the promoter's perspective on dealing with something like this, postponing events and stuff like that. Because a person not in your shoes, not understanding what you do, would think, oh, multiple postponed events could mean lost revenue for the entire year for a given quarter or whatever. Is that what it is in its simplest form, or is it much more complicated than that? And as long as you can reschedule those events, and that's why I know you're saying postpone, because you're hoping to get it somewhere else. As long as you can do those same events somewhere else, are you still whole? Are you made whole again for the year by doing that?
It makes, how to say, like that's what I said about planning the future, because you need to think also from the fighters' perspective, because all the clubs in Poland and in England and in Germany and probably in US also, they are closed. You don't have sparring partners. You don't have environment to practice enough and just to prepare yourself. So we need to reschedule the whole thing, So we are thinking, first of all, different countries, Poland, different fighters, So of course, like that's what I said. The problem is not right now, but it will become if the situation will continue. But we have something like reserves, So something like you could keep the money or on the side and just pay, So, but it's a complex situation, like, because including also the venue, or like we had already planned 2 years in the front, and now we need to change it. Of course, for example, for the first time, I don't know how much time we did, but that was the time when we did in June, July, August. But for the last, I don't know, 5-7 years, we were kind of avoiding the holidays, because usually in Europe it's just like really lazy time. People to listen music, not to watch the MMA. Generally, of course, there are some exceptions, and so we were avoiding those months. But because of the coronavirus, we are thinking about doing some show during also the summer period. But you never know. People might come and they've been looking for different sort of entertainment. Maybe they don't want to see the violence, the guys are fighting. Maybe they want to have a singing and dancing people, not actually the sports entertainment. Or people get poorer, and the first thing they cut off is just entertainment, it's marketing, so it also affects us, the most. So many things, many issues.
And I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to ask about it a little later, but for everybody. And I, in my own personal life, I'm feeling it on like an economic level, how it's affected my day job or my girlfriend's job, and stuff like that. So the economy is going to be completely different after we get on the other side of it. Is that part of what you're planning in terms of the rest of the year? Like you just mentioned, people might not have the money, so they'll cut off those luxuries. Is there a thought like, okay, when we come back, we want to come back strong, but maybe folks in different parts of the world may not just be able to afford to go out to an event? That might be the same thing that happens with Major League Baseball and all these other sports even here. Is that part of it? And do you have to almost plan for smaller venues, more intimate stuff, because you guys do such big large arenas, like you mentioned 13,000? Maybe you have to go smaller at first just to see how the economy is.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned also about the smaller in terms of the number of public, but also smaller in terms of the fighters. So usually that's what we do for years. We put a lot of big names into one fight card, So and usually those big names, they cost the most.
Yeah.
So probably we'll need to split it because the huge revenue from the ticket sales are gone for a long time, and especially massive events. I've been also talking today with our accounting advisor, and he said it's going to, even if the coronavirus virus will be kind of conquered or people will start to live with it, so still massive events like in one place for 5-6 hours, people are staying in one venue, 15,000. It will be too dangerous for many. First of all, people are going to be probably afraid to stay in a bigger public places when they can caught the virus. They might be afraid of traveling, and they got poorer if everything will collapse, and it's like domino, so people will get poorer, and not only about going outside and just spend the money for the venue, for the MMA event, because you need to drive, you need to spend for the parking, hotel, accommodation, sometimes, some drinks, etc., and the tickets itself, of course, but it might also affect even the pay-per-view sale. So I mean, considering changing the pricing. It might be that you need to reschedule and rethink everything.
So as of this recording on March 31st, I wanted to get your opinion as a top level promoter. Bellator yesterday canceled all their May events. One championship is tentatively going to go back on empty arena at the end of April, but that can always change, and they're always evolving what their planning is. Yet Dana White is still trying to make UFC 249 happen in the face of the U.S. government laying down a stay-at-home mandate until April 30th. Martin, Mr. Lewandowski, I am sure you don't want to talk bad about other promoters, but what is wrong with this man? Is this a special brand of stubborn, or on some level, as a top promoter, having to do it at the highest level, you kind of understand it?
That's true. I know Dana. I met him. I met him. That's true. But from one point, I understand. He's, because this is also what we try to do. You want to do this event, and all the forces. I kind of link, and you try every option and every situation. You use every tools you have to make it happen. And I think that it's good that Dana is trying this, but that's what I said at the beginning. There's something you are able to do as a businessman, and something you can't. And I don't think that I think in US you are guys hitting the worst crisis than Poland for sure. So I don't think that he's going to make it. The UFC is going to make it. Probably they will need to change everything like we try or we plan to do. But I understand this what it's called, this emotion that you don't want to feel like defeated.
Yeah.
We are in the business when winner takes it all.
Yeah.
So I think that's also, even if Dana and myself were never fighting on such a level in MMA, so we feel like the fighters, and we like to win, and we like to have everything under control. But this situation is bigger than us. and so no, I keep my finger crossed, because there might be some solution that, like for example in Sweden, for example, there are no restrictions, and you don't, and maybe they kind of wiser in their decision. Maybe they will be the richest country in the world within a year or something. But of course, they might sacrifice so far so many people.
Yep.
But you don't know what's going on. You know how many people really have this coronavirus. How many people will die? How many people will be registered as a died because of that virus? You know, so there are a lot of politics involved also. So. You know, it's hard to judge, but I think if there will be restrictions, so Dana, I wish him the best, really, but it's just like there's something, as I said, it's bigger than
Yeah.
us, and you have to accept it.
Now,
And I know it's hard as a businessman to accept it.
now you mentioned a little bit kind of what's going on in Poland and restrictions here. It's like you mentioned also it's getting worse. I live in New York, the epicenter of it here, so it's really difficult and things are changing. But what's the situation for you in personally in Poland? Like when I talked to Fernand Lopez, he talked about he was in his house for most of the part of 2 weeks. He went out once just to drive around. Just he had to get out. Like are there restrictions on movement, and what are they? Like, are you guys just allowed to go to the grocery store and come back? Have you been in the house for the better part of a couple of weeks? Like, what's your daily activities?
Yeah, so far it's been like, I feel like at home 2 weeks already.
Wow.
Because the first week was kind of, you could move a little bit here and there without so tough restrictions. But right now I'm staying at home. But as I said, I'm enjoying this really. I miss that part, that I could have my home activities and home office really. So I still feel I'm okay. Maybe after 2 or 3 weeks I got crazy, but so far good. But yes, I have a dog, so I walk twice a year. Twice a year.
A poor dog.
Yeah, sorry, he's just like a huge Labrador. He needs to have
Yes.
a lot of time and a lot of love, and he needs love to hug. So yeah, so twice a day I'm walking with my dog, and every, I don't know, 3 4 days, some shopping. That's it. I went to the office to pick up some stuff over here from some documents, and that's it. Trying to keep everything what I have to do at home. Talk with my parents and with my brother, via WhatsApp, and even if I walk now with my dog, I keep all those safety things. You never know. So people. That was like a week ago, look at you like a kind of freak.
Yeah.
But now
Yep.
I think it just look at you like a normal,
Yep.
like that's what I used to see in Asian countries. You just kind of, you feel like, I don't know, Blade Runner 2050, just like science fiction
Yes.
movies. So it's become a reality right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's even weird here. Like last, because it's the worst here in New York. That now you're seeing plastic coverings in front of supermarket cashier registers, and everybody is wearing the mask, and it is a downer kind of thing. And for you, are there like maybe friends or family you're not seeing the last couple weeks that you're missing just because it's what needs to be done for safety purposes? Are there older relatives that you got to be worried about because they're more affected by it? Everybody's affected by it, honestly, but they're more susceptible to have the worst case scenarios. Like, are you having things like that as well?
Yes, of course. Like when all this restriction, came into life. So with my brothers, we were really worried about our parents. They were staying actually on the seaside, having, I don't know what it's called. Like, when you become older, you can have, some time spent on the seaside. So we need to bring them, and we need to organize it. Car, who's driving, who had the contact with who. So because they were supposed to go by bus, so it's been a couple hours in the bus, then by taxi, so we try to avoid all that risk. So my brother, we decided that he's been in quarantine long enough, so he's the safest one. So and brought them the all the groceries, etc. So they kind of secured another. With my brother, the other brother, we bought via internet, so they're kind of safe right now. But everybody understands, and everybody is okay right now, because I think it's not such a long period of time. So I'm not missing anyone so far. As I said, I'm enjoying time with my family, with my wife, kid, and the dog, and that's my closest relatives.
Does something like this probably, because we're talking about how does it affect the promotion's finances and figuring out a long-term planning, and I'm sure all kinds of ideas, and you've mentioned so many of them are on the table. Now, this, again, amateur idea, you will inform me as a top level promoter, does something like this make the idea of co-promotion seem almost better? Not only would it be great PR, you mentioned you might just do all of a national event, all a London event, all Poland event, which would be great PR, but a co-promotion is always great PR, but on a financial level, splitting the costs of events, splitting the costs of the rosters of the fighters, does that almost seem more valid and more plausible now, or is it much more complicated than all of us amateur naive fans and media people think?
No, no, no. I think, of course, it's complicated. It used to be a complicated, even in normal times. But actually, I've been thinking about it today, about, some cooperation with Bellator and with Rising. That's what I've been thinking, because actually I had that thought a couple of years ago, and we've been trying to make some promotion, exchanging the fighters. So this is a good time to renew that idea and just to come back. So you just, it's a good timing,
Well, I'm supposed to talk to Campbell McLaren from Combate Americas after you. Should I tell him something?
Yeah, sure, sure. Actually, my co-worker, he knows them very, very well, and we're supposed to do. I think it's supposed to be this half of the year, some exchanging fighters program.
Okay.
So yeah, so he's aware of that. So yeah, but it's. I don't know what the other promoters, beside what I can think of and can imagine what the other problems they might have. They have like KSW is a private owned company. We don't have any loans. We don't have any bank. Insurance something. It's a solid and healthy company, I must say. I know that UFC has a lot of debt also, so this also makes it complicated. Bellator is owned by TV, which is supposed to be fine, because it's TV, that's what we are doing, maybe not most of the time, but quite often. I mean, myself, I watch more TV than I used to, and other Netflix sort of platforms. So that my point was that everybody is facing different problems. It's not like one problem for everybody. Besides, there is no income. That's general,
Yep.
but a different solution and different way of cooperating. So I wasn't talking with Scott. I wasn't talking with Saki Kabara about this idea. I just want to renew it and come back. But that's exactly one of the points I didn't want to tell you.
Well, thank you for telling me. Anyway, during this series of interviews, I've talked to a lot of different people, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, because you have to deal with fighters and understand fighters, kind of understand what's going on in their lives, and so they can perform to the best of their ability. And in this particular time, this kind of time is it's very negative effect on fighters, in that MMA is a unique sport in that fighters don't make huge money. It's not like some of the other professional sports. So a lot of fighters have side jobs. A lot of them are trainers in gyms, and a lot of them just have regular day-to-day jobs. And that's a problem for everybody. Gyms are closed all over the world. They can't train there, not only for fighting, but just to be coaching and get that extra money. How tough of a time like this is it for an MMA fighter? You can't get work in terms of fighting, and even your day job is in trouble. It seems like it's a pressure-filled time to be an MMA fighter right now.
I think it's the same for every profession. I wouldn't, it happened to the fighters, it happened to the people who are selling in the shops, to the drivers, to everyone. So they are not in favor in that sense, the fighters. I mean, those fighters who are not living from MMA, so they had some side jobs, so they might live and doing the other job. Those who live, like our top stars, top fighters, they supposed to save a little bit of the money, to have those money
supposed
right now. Yeah, supposed to, because people will become very irrational in terms spending money. Sometimes they live above what they are getting. So, but yeah, but I think that's the problem, which affects every fighter in every country. Those who can have another sources of the income, or those who had enough money and they can just play with those money or save using their savings, or not buying another car and another house, so, or just probably like everybody, are thinking about finding a new way of finding business and personal life in a new path. So I think also the fighters, they need to find their way of surviving. So far, we don't have like critical messages. I don't have a penny to ascend to live, So I think everybody is fine, but that's what I said. It affects the business and people in the same way. If we are living with the coronavirus for longer, it became more tragic for all of us.
Now, last question, and you kind of mentioned it on a lot of levels. All of us are in our houses much more than ever right now, trying to stay busy, trying to keep our mental health strong and stuff like that. So, of course, I'm sure you're busy with a lot of KSW related work, and you have the dog that tentatively you walk a couple times a day, and the family. I'm sure the family keeps you busy. But you mentioned Netflix, so what are some of the other things you're kind of getting to do now? What are the things you're getting to watch? Maybe read, maybe write that you weren't before, that you're getting a whole bunch of time to do and enjoying doing.
Yeah. So this, which really changes right now, is just that's what I mentioned, is watching more screens, different screens. I found time for the project which I forgot. Different, but you just like more like you need some of those projects. You need more time just to think about them and just to analyze this. And in the rush, I stay for the last couple of years. You didn't find the time just to focus on some certain thing. And I spend more time reading books. There is something which I always like. I mean, it's not that I didn't read. I just find it now more time for it. I woke up yesterday. It was Monday, and usually Monday is just after the weekend. Lazy. But coffee, book. So you just need to enjoy at least this time, because in 3 months' time you wouldn't have. So Monday with the coffee and the book. So yeah. So trying to enjoy just normal, simple, activities, which in those normal life, you didn't have a time.
What do you watch on Netflix? I've watched Narcos. I'm watching Ozark season 3. What do you watch on Netflix, since you mentioned Netflix?
I just finished the Vikings.
Ah,
so that's the
okay, all right.
6th or 7th season. I watched it. I loved the first 2 seasons. I mean, now just like I would like to watch it again. Yeah, from the Netflix. What else? There is on HBO. There's Devs. I don't know if you heard about that.
No.
Yeah, I think it's like the shortcut from development. DEVS. What else? What else? I think like in the library in Netflix, it's just like I'm reaching to the end. Of course, I didn't watch everything, but it's like no.
Yeah.
Okay, and so,
All right.
yeah, I watched last movie with De Niro and Dustin Hoffman. What was the? And it's actually very.
Wag the Dog.
It's about.
Yeah.
Yes, no, the dog.
Wag the Dog.
What was the
Wag
name?
the Dog.
Wag the Dog. Yeah. So you watched it like recently?
Oh no, I saw it years when it came back, but when Dustin Hoffman and De Niro in a movie together, you gotta watch that.
Okay. 1 or 2 maximum. That's true. It's very. It shows how people, manipulate the situation. Of course, it was shown in a very kind of pleasant way, but you can think it might be much worse.